Hello everyone, this is Erin with another replicant video, and today I'm doing a piece of concept art from Cinderella made by Blair. And this is officially the longest video I've ever made, so please stick with me as I go through all of the steps in a lot more details. So as I draw in my background, drawing in the composition, I'm really focusing on the negative space. So in this case, I was trying to start from the top down and then realized everything would get squished, and it's more important to have her body in the correct proportions than the curtains. So I started from the bottom up so that I could get her full dress and figure in correctly, and then brought in the curtains. But I really did look at the negative space sort of between the curtains there. Now I'm going to color pick in Procreate the background. So I place my finger over the picture, that picks up the color, and then I can look here in my color settings and see what kind of green it is and how much black and white is added to create this deep dark green color of the night sky outside the window. So I'm going to need a lot of yellow because it's a yellowy green, and then I can see that it's a gray that is leaning towards more black than white. Starting by mixing in my darker color into the lighter color, so the blue into the yellow, and adding a bit more water so it's nice and smooth, getting it to that melted ice cream consistency that I'm always going on about. I see it needs more blue, and then I look and see how much white and black it needs to create that deeper, less saturated color. So again, I've talked about this before, but this video really is going to be focusing on color mixing and color theory. And so this is a green hue, so the color is green, but it's a shade, so there's quite a bit of black in it. It has a little bit of white, but when you add white and black, you get a value range, right? So more white would be a higher value, more black would be a darker value or a lower value. And when we add a lot of white to something, we call it a tint. If we add a lot of black to something, we call it a shade. So in this case, we would probably be calling this, I say probably, a shade of green that is very low in value. And once I do a couple swatches, you can barely see the difference between these swatches, especially when they're wet, but once I created a swatch that I felt was close enough to the original color, I go ahead and apply it. And you'll notice that I'm not doing the entire background. Very often I'll do the entire background of a scene first before I start laying on the foreground or the midground. But in this case, the curtains take up over half of the composition, so it really doesn't make sense to do the entire background in green and then cover almost all of it with the orange of the curtains. I mixed way too much green, so because I don't like to waste paint, because gouache is expensive, I'm trying to to put most of it back, or some of it back, into this little container. Yeah, hopefully I'll find a use for that paint. Now the dry brush effect, it looks like it's black, but it's actually not black. By going into Procreate and grabbing that color, I can see that it's actually a deep dark magenta, or it's a black or it's a dark gray with a bit of magenta in it. I'm picking the right brush to get the right width, doing a little bit of a dry brush test there, and then here I go. So dry brush as the lost my brain for a minute. As the name implies, dry brush means your brush is dry, just dipping it into the paint. And then I use pressure, right? So the more pressure I have, the less of that dry brush effect you get. And yeah, I'm turning my brush on its side to get sort of some of the thinner strokes, and then flat down to get the wider strokes. And I'm like, yeah, that looks good. And then to do the window pane. So the frame of the window is black, straight up black, and it really shows up nicely against that deep dark magenta. So this is why it's important to do the color testing and to figure out what kind of black is in the background there, because if I use straight up black or even dark gray, it just wouldn't have the same kind of effect with this black window frame. And so now we have a nice contrast. The warmth of that dark deep gray in behind it sets off that green even more, because pink and green are opposites, and yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on here that you really don't think about until you start to understand color theory and how these colors can create a lovely balance. So yeah, and now I'm doing these panels, or the window, what do you call these? The window frame. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm not using a ruler. I'm not worrying about them being the perfect distance apart from one another or perfectly straight. I will recommend to do little tiny strokes like I'm doing that can help to make a straighter line, and holding your brush super close to the bristles gives you more control so that we get reasonably straight lines. You could always use a ruler, you could use washi tape to mask things, but it might not have the same character. I think, as I've mentioned before, the beauty of these pieces, the concept art that I'm replicating, they're done quickly, and that creates an energy that's really hard to pull off when you're using rulers and making everything perfect. So there we go. So let's talk a little bit more about how I'm using Procreate, because I did speed up the video, of course, so it's hard to really see what I'm doing. So the next thing that I'm going to paint is the floor. And the floor is what appears to be just, like a brown floor, but there is a texture to it, and it's not, when we say brown, what kind of brown? Is it a warm brown? Is it a cool brown? So by using this tool in Procreate, it really does help us figure out what kind of brown it is. But I would recommend trying to mix colors first before you use the trick in Procreate. Before you go and use your color dropper or your color settings, try to mix it yourself first, and just do small swatches. Don't waste paint on a big, or not even a big piece of concept art, but instead of going right into a painting, it's always smart to do just mix small amount of paint, do some swatches, and then see how it matches. So here I am, I put my finger over the color, which grabs the color. I go up into my color settings, I look and see where it is on the color wheel. So this is an orange brown. It has quite a bit of yellow, so I'm starting with mostly yellow here, putting a tiny bit of red in to create this orange that's on the yellow side. You can see there it's more yellow than it is red. And then I create the gray to add in with it. And so that part I learned from going in my color settings into the value range. So you can see here, I'm now making a whole new layer, dropping the color into that layer so I can see a larger surface area of the color. And I can see that I need, maybe a little bit of it. I need it darker or lighter or whatever. In this case, it turned out okay. It's the right color, sort of a nice goldish bronze color, very lovely. And then this is where I can start to sort of carve out the details of the ruffles on her dress. And this dress, oh my gosh, this dress is so incredible. The movement in this piece is beautiful with the curtains and her running, running away because it's midnight. But I love the scene, and the concept art, of course, didn't end up in the movie, but there was a book that came out after the movie, and Mary Blair's concept art was used for the illustrations. And I actually, those illustrations resonated more with me than the movie itself. And there are, I think, 2 illustrations of this dress in movement in the book. And as a kid, yeah, I was so in love with this look. Everything down to like the ruffles, but also the choker that she's wearing and the off the shoulder puff sleeves and the whole thing, the way Mary Blair draws it, really makes it come to life. It's incredible. I'm putting in the shadow here, so I'm using the same mixture of that sort of gold brown, just adding more black to it to do the shadow and the texture of the floor. And now drawing in the tiles, so similar technique as the window panes, just little tiny strokes to make it a bit straighter. And now let's do the color of the pillar. So this is a really beautiful sort of mauve purple color. So going to the dropper, figuring out, okay, I need equal parts pretty much of the ultramarine and the primary magenta. So we've got a really warm blue here, warm meaning this blue is closer to the red part of the color wheel as opposed to cyan, which is closer to the green and yellow part of the color wheel. And then putting in some of this magenta. And this is how we make a true purple, is magenta, which is a cool red mixed in with a warm blue. And then, of course, we need our white and black in there so that it's not as saturated. We're desaturating it. And we've got this sort of like an eggplant aubergine color. Do you say eggplant or aubergine? I'm an eggplant person myself. And then some blue highlights. So just using a little bit of cyan and white for those highlights, and then adding a bit of black to that original purple mixture for the details. This was a fun one to paint. So quick and dirty. I can't believe I named my last video Quick and Dirty. Well, I can believe it. It's just, yeah. It's fun to name these videos. Okay, so now we're doing a cyan and an ultramarine blue mixed together with a lot of white, a little bit of black to create the shadow on her dress. So, you know, grays can be anything, just like the browns. Grays can be warm, they can be cool. And in this case, we now can see that there's quite a bit of white in this gray. So it's a high value gray. And the blue is a mixture. It's like almost a perfect 50-50 split of the warm red, or the warm blue and the cool blue. So cyan and ultramarine, mixing them together to get this sort of silvery or silvery gray. And here I am making a rookie mistake, which I do. Every video I do something where I'm like, why would I do it this way? But the way I would have preferred to have painted this is start with the white of the dress and do the whole dress in white and then do the shadow on top after it's dried. But instead I do it the reverse, which I guess it's because I got excited and I was like, I want to paint the shadow, and that happens. Or it could be because I was painting this quite early in the day before my brain is really functioning. Although I am a morning person, I do my best work in the morning. So maybe this is my best work and that's just the way it is. But that's okay. It worked out. It just does make things a little bit tougher when you're going dark first and then trying to bring in the white. But I am mixing the colors with a little bit more care in this video. I do notice that the gouache is a bit smoother than it has been in the past few videos. I did take my time with it, making sure that the mixture is that creamy consistency, and then laying it down quickly, smoothly, not going over areas when it's still wet. And then here we have these lovely sort of calligraphic gestural lines to create the folds, the ripples of her dress. And that was really fun to do. The white here, I've added a bit too much water. I can see that it's a little bit too wet, but that's okay for a first coat. It's better to have a thinner consistency for the first coat and then have it thicker for the second and third coat. The top of her dress here, I love the sleeves. I love how cute it is, but look at that waist. That's just ridiculous. Those Disney proportions are, yeah. Very unrealistic. It looks lovely, right? With the dress, the proportions, but yeah, it's that waist would be like 12 inches. Not good. Yeah, we're not gonna skinny shame Cinderella. Is that even a thing? I think I just coined that. All right, let's talk about the skin tone, which I added way too much yellow to. I made it too peachy. It should have had more white, a little bit more red, less yellow, but it's close enough. I would love to get a new brush. This Winsor Newton brush has seen its very last days. This could be the last time you see me using this brush, which breaks my heart. I did have a viewer, Gina. Hi, Gina. Shout out to Gina, who made a suggestion about a brush that I could try. So I'm going to go back and look at that comment and then check it out. I'll probably buy one this week. I should also actually thank Gina, because it was one of her comments that inspired me to do a video that's more focused on color mixing. We actually had a lesson together and talked about, we did a Zoom, as sort of a Zoom class about color mixing, and it was great. We both learned a lot. It was really helpful. So yeah, this color mixing video is dedicated to Gina. And now the hair is a little bit too yellow. Could have added more white, but that's all right. It works. And the hairdo is adorable. This is my favorite. I try to emulate this hairdo all the time, actually. It's like an updo with like little pieces that are straggly and create movement. And it's, yeah, it's very romantic with her running and her hair falling out of its bun. Or actually, was it like a little ponytail bun originally? Anyway, it's very cute. We are now making the curtains. And again, I opened it in Procreate, got the color, looked at it on the wheel and saw that it is a yellow orange with a little bit of black and white in it, and I did add too much black. So I've made it a little bit too desaturated, but I'm going to test it out by filling the whole page with that color, and I can see, yeah, we need more yellow, we need more red, we need to bump up that saturation. And I'm using a lot of paint, which is okay because I needed to do 2 coats, so I end up using pretty much all this paint anyway. But yeah, I keep adding more paint. I'm watching this and I'm like, oh my God, that's so much paint. That's like another 10 cents or 30 cents or something. Anyway, I'm not that stingy. I'm just, you know, I'm conscious of how expensive this material is. Yeah, I was trying to wipe off. I don't know if you noticed because it's sped up way too fast, but I actually tried to zoom in with my fingers. Have any of you ever done that, where you try to zoom in to like an analog piece of paper? It's not on your screen, or try to swipe a photo that's like a real photo. Anyway, I just tried to zoom in because I actually got splatters of paint when I was just mixing that curtain color. I got little splatters of paint all over the background. So yeah, be careful of that. Don't be like me. Don't do what I do and mix your paint right on top of your piece of art. I'm using a slightly bigger brush, quite a big brush here. This brush was super cheap. I got it on sale, but it works great. And filling in the curtains here. As the curtain started to dry, I thought, ooh, they're a little bit too dark. And that could be because when I'm using Procreate, the light from the screen makes everything look a little brighter. So I decided to brighten it up a bit here for the second coat. And I really didn't need to do this, but it, you know, it is what it is. It didn't ruin it. It just, I probably didn't need to lighten it up, but I'm doing the second coat. You'll notice that as I'm using the brush, I'm actually creating brush strokes that are sort of in the shape of the curtains to help add to that rippling effect, the billowing curtain effect, just going in the shape of the curtains. And now doing the highlights, which is the same color, I just added more white to it. But as I started to place it down, I realized that it wasn't bright enough. And so I add a little bit more white, a little bit more yellow, and punch it up a bit. Yeah, that's better. Mucho better. So at this point, I am now recording over my voiceover because I end up rambling about these curtains and it's pointless. So I thought I'd record over it with something that I forgot to talk about, which is the actual color scheme of the entire piece. So this piece of artwork, you can see the colors are working beautifully together. Part of that is due to the saturation. They're all desaturated in a very lovely way, but there's some colors here that are a higher value, like the curtains, and then a lower value, like the sky outside. But these colors that are working together, this orange, the purple, the green, this would be a tetratic combination, a tetratic, it's a very hard word to say for me, color scheme. And often this color scheme can be really uncomfortable. It's actually, the classic example of it is the Joker's costume from Batman. So it can be really loud and sort of gaudy and uncomfortable. But in this case, it's creating a mood that has tension. So she's running away, right? It's midnight, she has to get away. And so it's dramatic. So it really adds drama. Great trick if you're painting something challenging, just focus on the shapes, not what the thing actually is. But adding the tassels here, and then I put in the dark the shadows of the drapes, things start to come together. And I've mentioned it before, there's always a point in a painting. I mean, almost every painting I've ever done, whether it's a replicant or my own original work, there's always a moment where you're like, this is the ugliest piece of crap. Like, I hate what I'm painting. And then it comes together and you're like, oh, it's not super terrible. Anyway, there we are, all done. Yay. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way through, kudos to you. Come back again. Bye.